I obviously came across the issue with the rear end here. The pin flew out or kind of walked its way out. I suspect that what it is it's the centrifugal force that's opening up the band. And because maybe the actual axle piece or the splined little hub piece that goes on to the differential, I suspect that that plastic piece may be too thick, not allowing that band to fully close or at least wrap around. And I think that if Arrma, they apparently already have a fix, is what I'm getting wind of, that if they take that plastic section, like I was saying, and take that plastic section, and if it's milled out just a little bit more, it'll allow that band to kind of like grab on and less chance of it popping off. Now, they were saying that there was the possibility of rocks and debris, and I definitely agree with that, because just like what we know, when that wheel's turned like that, what is it doing? It's firing all the junk right into that location right there. So that is a very high probability. So we're going to break open to this motor and see if there's any issues. The other thing that I noticed is that the gear, and I don't know if you can see it with your eyes, but if you look at that gear, maybe if I should change the frame rate. I'm going to change the frame rate so you can see what I'm talking about. When I spin this, I'll be able to slow it down, and maybe you'll be able to see what I'm talking about. You can see that the gear, like if you watch the gear compared to the clutch or the holes or at least the slipper pad, you can see it's off. So that's a bad kind of deal. So there we go. I did check the bearings. The bearings themselves seem fine. Things obviously did get a little bit dirty from, you know, the kind of, I guess you want to say, the destruction that was going on in here. The other thing is that this platform still suffers is entry of debris without any exit. So underneath on the chassis, I'm going to bore a hole. And I'm just going to use, I've done this before, I'm going to bore a hole instead of a slot. I'm going to bore a hole with my body reamer, because you don't need big pieces getting in. And that's the way I look at it, is that using a hole instead of a slot, I feel the slot might allow things to kind of get kicked up and inside, where if you do a hole, the hole is just going to help filter down some of the garbage that kind of collects in this motor area. Because when you put this, obviously this cover on, there's a slot right there that just needs to be a hole so that this stuff that gets packed in there from basically all around, like all around this whole area, stuff filters in. So having a hole, maybe instead of a slot, which is what I've done before, the hole definitely seems to work. I feel that a hole is better than a slot. So everything's fine with that, other than the fact that it's got a massive, it's massively out of balance. That actually is going to cause eventual bearing issues. You can actually hear it pulsing. Hear that? So just like a vehicle tire or a vehicle wheel, if the vehicle wheel is out of balance, eventually what it's going to do is it's going to overwork the suspension. It's going to overwork everything about, everything about that little scenario right there. The wheel bearings, the suspension, just whatever that's connected to that, the shock, the strut, whatever you got, the bushings, everything, because there's that vibration. So if you didn't balance your tires or your wheels, it would be a rough ride, but it definitely helps save components. With this particular component, I mean, RTR kind of deal, I don't know. There's a certain amount of, again, quality control. Now, I do have the hot racing version, which is this one right here. And the part number for that is STFF257N, and it's the 57 tooth Mod 0.8 steel spur gear Arrma, 1/10 scale, 4x4 BLX, 3S, and 4S. So, supposedly, this gear should work. Now, I was talking to Earl, and I believe he had said that he doesn't think that this gear is hardened. I don't know. It definitely feels like it's nice. It looks like it's nice. It's just a certain unknowns, man. So info bashing, I think maybe, you know, you need something such as this. So this might be something that you want to go ahead and get. But if you see, that's all the movement that we got. And yeah, that's all the movement that we got. So we're going to just crack this open and see what's going on. So I am going to go ahead and take that little pinion off, but I'm going to slide the motor heatsink off first. So I don't know if that's Loctited or not, but come on, flame on. Just gonna go ahead and just heat that up, just in case. Oh, it's definitely loose. And I'm going to take the little D-lock, slide it this way, and then grab it like this is usually what I do. Just like that. Grab that. And then I said, pull this gear off. It's a little hot. So, what I'm seeing, that bearing completely wiped out. Yep. That is exactly what happened. So just like the 3200 kV motors, this bearing got wiped out. So I'm going to go, and that's the tough one to get out too, man. That is the harder bearing to get out. Dang. Well, hopefully it stayed together enough to be able to pull it out. So I'm going to go ahead and hit these 3 screws with some heat. Like that, and that should be enough to break those free. I hit them with heat just in case they are thread locked. I don't want these things to strip out. They will strip out extremely easy. Put a little bit of pressure on them as you're twisting them out. It's definitely some kind of thread lock or something on those. Yep, you can see it. It's like a little white powdery residue. So that actually feels fine. So I'm going to go ahead and get my fingernail in there and get this cover off. Oh, this one really wants to hold on. There we go. So let's see what we're looking at in there. It actually looks pretty clean on this back side. The back bearing is usually fine. Normally it is just the front bearing. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to give this rotor a push. Ooh, that doesn't feel good. Oh boy. I'm going to have to give it a couple of taps. Oh, look at that. I think the bearing just came with it. No way. That's awesome. If the bearing literally just came with it, that is going to be a beautiful situation. Now, don't lose this piece right here. Don't lose that. That's like your shim. You know what is funny is that usually there's little convex or concave washers that are right here, and I'm not seeing them right now. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to pull this rotor out, and the bearing stayed inside because there's nothing left to it. So you can see this is the inner race. We've got a couple ball bearings that fell out. It looks like the only ball bearings that survived out of there were 3, 4, 5, 6 bearings. I highly doubt that that is a 6 bearing ball bearing. I highly doubt it. So most likely what that means is all the dust that was in there. Actually, it looks like there's another bearing hiding in there. Maybe not. So this is when it becomes kind of like a little bit of an issue. So, there we go. More cage. Yeah, this is definitely when it becomes an issue, because what happens is the race is stuck in there. So what I've done in the past is I could take a socket and hammer the socket into the race and then very carefully just tap it down. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to grab a socket and see if that works. All right, so I did find it. So I'm going to go ahead and apply some heat. And I'm going to give it a couple taps. And I think that did it. There it is. There it is. See, it works, man. I'm telling you. Love it when a plan comes together. So there's the rest of the... there's the actual outer race. A little bit of the inner shield was still left. But you can see how that 9mm socket does bite on this. Now, that's a good thing, because that's telling me that this bearing most likely is the same bearing as the 3200s, which is actually kind of annoying. And I'm actually annoyed on Arrma's side, meaning, or Horizon Hobby, whoever. Because this right here, this is not acceptable. Not coming from me towards Arrma. I mean, even though it is, but Arrma should not be accepting that kind of substandard quality of bearing. So there was a big rash, obviously, of the 3200 kV motors of all the 3S line from like the past couple of years, that every single motor, even the brand new ones that were warranted, were literally junk. So now that this 2400 kV that's coming out of this brand new rig, man, that is just not acceptable. And I'm telling you, Arrma should really get on these Chinese manufacturers or whatever manufacturers are making these bearings and get on their butts and say, you're killing us here, guy. We're not going to send you any more business. You got to straighten things out, because that is definitely not cool. I'm fighting for Arrma. You know why I'm fighting for Arrma? Not because they gave me this car for free. Because I actually like this car. So I haven't had the 4S line. This truck right here, the way it drove, the way it flew, the way it was handling, I was very much appreciating the slight size difference from, say, a Big Rock or a Granite or whatever. It's that in-between. It's that level up from what I call a grab and go. So now that we've got that race off, we're going to pound that off of the socket. It'll just take a couple little whacks. I do have that little vise over there, but I might not even need it. But yeah, now we're going to go ahead and take some measurements on that bearing. We also have to get the inner race off of the shaft on the rotor. So hopefully that's not going to be an issue. Normally it's not. You can sometimes grab a hold of that with, say, pliers like this and give it a couple of taps and you can slide it off. So we're going to go ahead and give that a shot. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to get this race off first. Yeah. You heard it. Couple taps. There we go. Now, believe it or not, I save these. I save these pieces because I use them as spacers. So, I'm not telling you to do it, but it's something that I do. I keep a hold of these, pack rat syndrome, or whatever you want to call it. So now we got to go ahead and get after this piece, which again, should be pretty easy. You should just be able to take it like this, put it down on a table, or whatever, bench, and give it a couple of taps right there, and that should slide off. Now, if it doesn't slide off, might just need to apply some heat. Ugh. Come on! Thing is sticking and everything. You can see it's already coming off, just those couple of light little hits. So most likely this can probably be grabbed. Yeah, there we go. No problem. There we go. And I also save these inner races as standoffs too. Again, it's just that thing. So let's see if we got this piece here. This is the shield. That was the inner shield or outer shield, whatever one it was. The inner shield. And then there's those shims. Now do not lose these shims. See these right here? Don't lose those. Those are important. So we're going to put those there. I'm going to go ahead and take that off of there. This is a little scored, but it might be all right. I'm going to try to just clean it up a little bit. So the bearings that I use for this are, these are those TRB RC bearings. These are a hybrid bearing. So these are ceramic bearings. So this is a hybrid ceramic bearing. One side is shielded, the other side is sealed. Now obviously the shielded side is going to go towards the heat, and the sealed side is going to go towards the outside. So when I install this bearing, this side is going to go towards this end. So obviously once I place it on the rotor, it's going on like this, provided that it fits, and it does. Okay, but I'm going to put those little shims on anyway. So that's pretty much cleaned up. This was pretty painless. So I'm going to go ahead and take these little shims, take them off as they came on, or as they came off. Slide those on there. I'm going to go ahead and slide the shielded side of the bearing towards the rotor. And I actually am going to put just a drop of assembly lube. Ooh. Just like that. There we go. Perfect. Now, when I slide this into there, which actually I got to clean up inside. So inside's pretty nasty looking, so I'm going to go ahead and clean that up. It's still a little gunky down in there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just take a paper towel, fold it up, and jam it down inside and clean it out. Look at that. And then once it gets down there, I can then take it, give it a spin, and it should clean off, I hope, the junk that's in there. It's like there's still a little bit more garbage in there. I can see some black. Yeah, that's it right there. Pieces. Is I'm going to take a drop of oil, I'm going to drop it down in there, and I take a Q-tip and kind of just push that oil down and around that surface, just to kind of coat that surface right there. Kind of cleans it, kind of coats it. Now I can go ahead and take the rotor, make sure nothing's stuck to it. Seems like it's all right. and I can drop it inside, and that bearing should go home. Now, if it doesn't go home, I can give it some light taps. So I can see it's slightly off. There we go. I'm going to give it just a couple of taps. And what I want to see is I want to see that that bearing has seated all the way. And it hasn't seated yet, so give it a couple more little extra taps. There we go. I think that is real close. Now hear how it's a thud now? Now that bearing is seated. Just to be proactive, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take a drop of oil and stick a drop of oil right inside of there. Maybe two. Okay, that way it just kind of keeps that bearing happy. I mean, the bearing itself was happy anyway, but there's nothing wrong with tossing a couple of extra drops in there. So now I need to make sure that I put that little shim on there, like that. Line up the slot with the motor wires while guiding the shaft into the bearing hole. I'm going to give a couple of little love taps. Just like that. Nothing crazy. And then you would take Loctite, but I don't need to because I know it's fine. So now I'm just going to go ahead, 1.5 screws. Put these back in. And there we go. Let's take a look at the gear. Gear itself has definitely got a wear pattern on it. You can see that it's been on power. So on power is on that side, just because of the way the pattern is worn. So it's pushing that way. I'm going to go ahead and just slide this back on. Take the little clip. Put the clip back in there, sideways. Just makes it easier to go on. And keep your finger over it. That way, in case it decides to launch, it won't. And then what I do is I will then take it and turn it like that. Now, I'm going to go ahead and put that gear all the way up to the top. Because if I remember right, I think that's where it was. And I'm going to back this off. I'm going to put a little bit of Loctite on there. So just a little bit of Loctite, just like that. And I'm going to spin it inside the hole like that. And then screw it in. Wipe off the excess. Now that's as easy. That's how easy that is to go ahead and replace that bearing. Now, that isn't what we should have to do. It definitely isn't what we should have to do, but if you had to do it and you were kind of lost, like I said, with this particular motor for the 3200 kV motor and the 2400 kV motor, it doesn't, that particular socket doesn't work on the 3150. I think that motor, the bearing, I think is slightly different. It's either small, I think it's smaller. But at least I had the bearing. I did use that bearing company, TRB RC. That is a hybrid ceramic bearing. And like I said, you saw that I put the sealed side facing the pinion. And then obviously the shielded side is facing the heat. So, and I did put a little bit of extra oil on there. So we're going to go ahead and reinstall this motor. This is something that we don't need to record because, well, I mean, yeah, we don't need to record it. But what I do want to show you, this motor right here is what's going to be going into that vehicle once I'm done with all of my filming stuff that I kind of want to do, grabbing content, you know what I'm saying? I got to catch up on some content right now because of this issue. So, but that motor right there, that has already been test fitted, and it fits absolutely beautiful in that truck, as well as this bad boy right here. This is when Arrma was creating and providing and making just better motors, man. This is the BLX hot motor. This is the 2050 KV, and this one also fits. So anyways, this is RC Guy Garage, and nothing is perfect. We are working on the Arrma V2 Outcast 4S, and yeah, eventually we're gonna switch this bad boy over to 6S. It's probably gonna be absolutely out of its mind on 6S, but I've got to try it because, yeah, definitely gonna try it. It's called taking systems out of one vehicle and putting castle systems in another. So, anyways, RC Guy Garage. I'm not out ripping it up today, but I was for the past few days. Hopefully you enjoy the content. You know what to do. Throw up one of those. If you are not subscribed to the channel, you know what to do. You don't have to, but I definitely would appreciate it. It helps the algorithm. Also, keep those comments flowing. The comments, the interaction, all of that. All of that. If you notice, I try to comment back, or at least I read just about every single comment. Now, there are times when I miss comments. So, yeah, YouTube has this thing about throwing comments in like the spam folder or something. Some kind of folder, oh, held for review. So just keep in mind, make sure your comment is, you know, within the guidelines, and your comment won't get flagged for review or however they do it. YouTube hides it. I never find it. So I find it randomly. So, yeah. So anyways, hopefully you enjoy this content, and I will be out ripping it tomorrow. Hope you guys have a good night. We'll see you later. All right, let's get out of here.